Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the PhinManiacs.com podcast. We are live once again. It is a Thursday night, so we're gonna be competing a little bit with Browns and Bengals Thursday night football. But then again, it's the Browns, so who really cares? Johnny Manziel's gonna just do Johnny Manziel-like things and see what happens from there. So tonight we're gonna have something very interesting going on. First of all, we have our guest for the night, Antwan Staley of Pro Player Insiders and Sports Talk Florida. Antwan, thanks for joining us, man.
All right. Yeah, nice to be here.
And, of course, with me, as always, is my co-host, Chad Ronnebaum. Chad, nice to see you again, man.
Great to be here, as always.
And so as far as other guests go, well, how about you guys? What we're going to do, what we have from now on, guys, is that you can actually call in the show and you can tell us what you want to say. You can call in the show at 1-954-376-5704. You call that number and I will get you in there and we'll talk some Dolphins football. So hope that should be exciting, and I'm hoping to get some really good callers coming into the near future. But for right now, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. We have the recap of the New England Patriots game, which, we don't really want to recap, but, that's our thing. We have to recap it. And, of course, we're going to preview the rematch against the Buffalo Bills, and let's see if any of the changes that Dan Campbell has made is going to pay off in the long run. But first and foremost, the Patriots game. I mean, what's there to say about the Patriots game, really? It was awful. It was beyond ugly to watch. I had a sneaking suspicion that we weren't going to win, but I never even imagined that it was going to be a blowout of that proportions. Mind you, the blowout was only because the Dolphins' offense couldn't really do much of anything. The Patriots immediately took away the running game and made the Dolphins a one-dimensional offense, just like we were worried about with Joe Philbin's Miami Dolphins. And truthfully, even after Cam Wake went out with an Achilles injury, which is something we'll also talk about, is that the defense actually did a fairly good job containing this well-oiled machine that is the New England Patriots. I believe there was a time in the game where we got like 3 straight 3-and-outs against the New England Patriots, and that's something all of a sudden that's considered unheard of, considering how well the Patriots are doing and they're undefeated and all that stuff. So it's not like the Dolphins just laid down and died, especially not on the defensive side of the ball. They just got out-executed. And on a Thursday night, where Thursday night football games are historically bad, and it's truthfully just another money grab by the NFL, if we're being perfectly honest. I'm not surprised that they lost, but what I am surprised is that the offense just looked so inept. I was hoping that they would be able to be a little more physical. I was hoping they'd be able to at least put up more of a fight on offense. I appreciate what the defense was able to do, even though the score was 37-6. But if you watch that game, you could tell that the defense was giving it their all, and it was making Tom Brady actually not look as elite as he's used to looking. So I want to hear from you guys. And Antwan, I'm going to start with you first, man, because you were there. What was the atmosphere like in the locker room after that loss against the Patriots?
It was kind of down atmosphere. The players expected to win, and obviously that wasn't the case. So, yeah, the Dolphins really thought they had a chance to win the game, and, yeah, the players were just down and, they know the Patriots are really good, and they have a lot of respect for them, but the Dolphins really were confident coming in and thought they created a great playing plan. But to be honest with you, I knew the Dolphins would lose, but I didn't expect that blowout. I expected the Patriots to win by about 13 points or so. But yeah, the second half kind of happened, and like you said, the defense played hard. But if the defense keeps going back out on the field, eventually they're going to wear down, and I think that's what kind of happened.
Yeah, and it seems to me that what added to that bad atmosphere was obviously the loss of Cameron Wake. You guys, we all saw that the players were very depressed over the loss of their star pass rusher, their friend, their teammate, their comrade in arms. They were very upset about what happened to Wake. It was really a somber mood in the locker room, and it seemed like the injuries just suddenly started piling up for the Dolphins against the Patriots. I don't know if that's some kind of coincidence
James
or what.
as well. Yeah, James ended up getting hurt, and he's reportedly, even though they still have not confirmed this, he's reportedly supposed to be out 4 to 6 weeks. We'll see. He is on the injury report, and of course, he's not going to play this week, so we'll see how long he's out. But yeah, it's just like that injury along with the Wake injury. It was just a tough night for the Dolphins, and yeah, as you can imagine, a very somber locker room.
So I don't know. I don't know what I can suggest to the Dolphins offense other than they should have run the ball more. But it seems to me that we've been harping on this for so long now. It seems so simple, so obvious that if you want the Dolphins to function, there needs to be a balanced offense.
Well, I'll say this too. In defense to them, like, and they brought this. Dan Campbell and Bill Lazor brought this up. They started to run the ball. It was a third and short call early in the game, and they ended up getting the first down. They ran Lamar Miller, but it was a penalty. So of course that proved them back 10 yards. It was holding call. So of course 3rd and 10, you're not going to run the ball there. So they just kept getting in their own way at times. They wanted to run the ball, but again, they felt like they couldn't. The Patriots got off to a really good start, and they felt like they just kept getting in their own way, and the Patriots were kind of pinning their ends back and kind of forcing their hand and took away their best option, which was to run the football.
I understand this. I understand that, Antwan. Really, I do. I understand why teams would think this way. However, we've seen what happens when the Dolphins decide to go away from balance. And it seems to me that just thinking with logic and common sense, if your offense functions best when you're running the ball, even if there's not a whole lot of time left, it's like if it's like 2 minutes left in the whole game, then yeah, you kind of have to pass it all the time. But the fact that they abandoned the running game so willingly again just speaks to me that Bill Lazor and Al Saunders and whoever else is running the show, Dan Campbell included, it just seems to me that they just kind of buy into this whole regular, well, let's do conventional wisdom, and if we're down 2 scores, let's just throw the ball all day. When we already know, and it's been proven over and over again, that the Dolphins offense does not run when they do that sort of thing, so it just seems counterproductive to go into that style of football.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. Like I agree with you. I think they should run the ball more. I think they should, even when you're down. A lot of good teams run the football. They just don't abandon it totally. So yeah, I agree with you to an extent. Yeah, I see it from. I'm just trying to bring it to their point of view as well. Like I agree with you. I think they need to consistently run the ball a little bit more, even if they're down and get a 2 scores. As you alluded to, they're down at halftime 2 scores. So yeah, they just kind of went away from it, and that was that. And of course, Tannehill turned the ball over a couple of times, and yeah, once you do that, especially against a good team like the Patriots, then it's going to be a wrap from that.
And that's the thing. It just seems to me that at some point you just kind of have to toss aside conventional wisdom or the normal way of doing things and just do what works. If it means that you're going to be down 2 scores and you're still going to be 2 tight ends and playing physical football, then so be it, because that's how the offense functions. This whole idea of throwing the ball 50 times a game and trying to catch up while you're down, it really is only functional if the guy you have is on an elite level of playing, someone along the lines of a Tom Brady, who is, even though he doesn't do impressive things, at least not like on the highlight reel, anything like that, he is an elite quarterback because he knows where he's going to go with the football before the ball is even snapped. You have a guy like Aaron Rodgers who just has all the physical ability in the world, and he manages to make things happen even when it seems like there's no hope. You have Phillip Rivers, you have Ben Roethlisberger, you have Cam Newton recently. Those are guys that you can get away with just throwing the ball all the time, but most of the quarterbacks in this league need balance, and it seems to me that to expect elite quarterback play from quarterbacks who are not elite, again, is counterproductive, and it just feeds the narrative that all that matters is QB wins, QB rating, and all that stuff that I have been preaching against ever since I got here.
Yeah, yeah. I like you said, Tannehill's not necessarily on that level, and yeah, he definitely needs some help, and that's what the Dolphins are trying to do: go out and get him help. And yeah, I think running the ball with Lamar Miller, especially, considering he coming off the games against Houston, against Tennessee, and they had success running the football. I don't know. I don't know if they would have had as well. I know they wouldn't have had as much success as they did against those 2 teams, but yeah, just run the ball and keep the defense honest and keep Ryan Tannehill from turning the ball over as much as he did, and it helps him. It helps everybody out, and that's what the offensive linemen talked about getting back to running the football, and that's what they want to do, and that's what they plan on doing this week against Buffalo. So we'll see. It's going to be they have a tall order this week in particular, especially considering the Bills have such a great defensive line. So we'll see if they really go back to running the football and can they be successful at it.
Yeah, I thought they abandoned the run a little bit early in the New England game. I understood it once you got into the third and fourth quarters, it didn't make much sense to be running the ball anymore because that would have played right into New England's hand because they just wanted to see the clock running down when you get a lead like that. So it makes it hard to continually run the ball. But I did think that they abandoned it a little bit early. But the big disappointment in the game was I thought was Ryan Tannehill's play. To me, granted, ER playing against Bill Belichick, but that was his worst game that I've seen in quite a few games because his interceptions weren't situational. Like some of his other interceptions this year are tipped balls, or clearly the receiver ran the wrong route. They weren't on the same page, but he threw some of his passes they were bad choices. They were into coverage, and he got burned for it. And the team just wasn't as sharp as they need to be, whether that was the short week or being on the road so much, or what the reason was, but you can't give that many opportunities to Tom Brady and the Patriots. And and to respond to what you're saying, Lewis, that you can't just throw the ball again. I think that's true even for the elite quarterbacks for Tom Brady, because when you're watching Tom Brady execute that offense, it's so rare that they're way behind, and so it's easy to throw the ball when you have the threat of the running game working because the other team's defense has to stay honest. But when you're playing quarterback and you're down, 14 points or more, well, they know you're going to pass that. And so they don't respect the run at all. And it makes it that much harder to successfully execute it. But I'm a little more concerned than I have been in a while with Tannehill. Obviously, he makes some good throws and he has good moments, but what I really haven't seen out of him and what's starting to make me nervous is he just has never really risen in big games. And so when you're playing a game of that caliber, or you're getting games where the playoffs are on the line, you're expecting Tannehill to be the man, and he just doesn't seem to have that right now. And I've heard this before, and I even saw it in this game as they were showing him on the sidelines and stuff. He didn't even seem that like emotional or mad, and then you see Tom Brady and they're up like 21 points and he's just going nuts if they don't complete a third down conversion. And so part of me wonders, where is Tannehill's head? How passionate is he about winning, and is he a guy that rises when the game's on the line? I have no doubt that he can make all the throws. I have no doubt in his talent, and I feel he's progressed, but I don't know. Can you name a game where you thought Tannehill led this team back, and he's a guy like that? He just hasn't done it very much, and you start to worry. He hasn't even been. He's never even played in a playoff game, and so you just wonder where he's at in terms of the mental level, I guess, when the games are big.
I just got a tweet from the Dolphins end zone. That's at Dolphins end zone. Essentially, he says, "This team is the same team. Talent level is not where it needs to be. Tannehill isn't a leader." I don't know how far.
Ooh. Ooh.
Well, do you agree with him or no, Antwan? You're the one who's around him the most.
Is he elite? I think the players like him. They follow him. Now, is he elite? Obviously, like you have eyes, he's not. He's not where he needs to be. The coaches even acknowledge that. Bill Lazor said that. Dan Campbell has said that. They know he's not necessarily playing up to where they expect him to be. As far as him being a leader, I think the players like Tannehill. I don't want to get any sense that they won't follow him. And the Mike Pouncey talks highly about him and everything like that. How hard of a worker he is, and I think the players see that. So yeah, I think they. I won't go as far as to say he's not a leader, but as far as say his play definitely needs to improve, and it has to start this week if they have any shot of moving forward and trying to get into the playoffs, because like I said, the playoffs are still in cards. You have the Raiders and you have the Jets right now, leading those two wild card spots, but the Dolphins have an opportunity to get back in it, but his play is going to have to really, really turn around in order for that to happen.
But this is something interesting, Antwan, and I'm actually glad you brought it up, because you said that the players like Tannehill.
Yes.
The players also liked Joe Philbin. but it was
Correct.
painfully obvious that he is not a lead. That he was not a leader when he was here. He was never a leader in Miami or in Green Bay, for that matter. And if the players did not like him, they would have had no problems bad mouthing him at every turn. So.
Yeah.
The fact that you said Tannehill, they like Tannehill, that doesn't necessarily mean he's a leader. Now, personally, I think he's doing everything he needs to be as a leader. What I think people are trying to look for is this whole idea of Ryan Tannehill being this guy who is going to step up and make all the big plays and make all the clutch fourth quarter, all that stuff about being clutch at important times. And all I can think to myself is, Tim Tebow a few years ago was the best uh, quarter fourth quarter quarterback in all of football, in just how the team played in the fourth quarter. Even his numbers were excellent in the fourth quarter, and I think at one point he literally was the top, if you want to go with QB rating and or whatever, if you want to do that, he was the top fourth quarter quarterback. So honestly, I don't like that kind of mentality of, is he a leader, is he clutch, is all that stuff, because again, we don't look at the circumstances. We don't look at why things happen, and that's what really bugs me about all these sorts of things. I believe it was a tweet by Eric Elizondo who put up exactly what it was that the Dolphins were dealing with on third down. We have a bunch of third down situations that we've been dealing with, and all of them, and a lot of them had Tannehill failing. But the third down situations that the Dolphins had versus the Patriots were 3rd and 11, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10,
Yep.
3rd and 10, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 13, 3rd and 1, and 3rd
Exactly.
and 3. And then you got 3rd and 28, 3rd and 10, and 3rd and 23 again. So it doesn't seem to me that it's a shock that the third down situation is a problem, especially when it's not like it's 3rd and short. It's always 3rd and 10 or 3rd and a mile.
Yeah, exactly. And in that case, yeah, that doesn't fall into, that doesn't benefit the Dolphins in that. Well, it doesn't benefit any team for that matter to be in that situation, more or less. A team constructed as the Dolphins. So yeah, it's going to be tough for them to make those third and long situations, and not every team is going to. That's why you're going to struggle on third down. And they talked about that today in practice, how what they need to do as far as improving on third down. And Bill Lazor talked about watching film and seeing things he could do differently, and to try to make it, third and shorter, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4. So yeah, they noticed that, and they know they need to improve in that area.
I don't. I mean, look, the third down situation it's a problem, but again, it really feels like that this can be fixed by balance, and it can be fixed by making sure that you don't fall into a one-dimensional type of play. I mean, I don't even have enough fingers to count the quarterbacks who flop on their face every time a game becomes one-dimensional. Like, you see the 7-0 Cincinnati Bengals, and I don't think to myself, well, Andy Dalton is elite. And I don't know many people who do suddenly think this. I mean, I'll ask you, Antwan, do you think that Andy Dalton has just suddenly figured it out and now he's an elite quarterback to prove that because they're 7-0?
I'm not going to go that far, but he is playing very well, and I think the balanced running game is really helping him out, and
right.
And so I think, I'm not going to go. He's playing well. You can't deny that.
No.
I'm not going to sit here and say he's arrived and things like that, but his play is really improved. Like, I think you have to give him credit in that sense.
I'll give him credit for playing well, but I'm not necessarily going to say it's because he's just suddenly this awesome quarterback. It's because the team around him started functioning.
Yeah, I'm very I'm very picky, like saying somebody is, the elite and all that. Like, one season doesn't necessarily make you that. It takes years and years of doing it on a consistent basis. So for me, anyway. So that's why I'm not ready to say that. If he does it next year and the year after that, then yeah, we can start to have that conversation. But that, he is having a really good year this
year. Every dog has his day.
But I think the frustration with Tannehill, and I heard the people talking about this on the Joe Rogan show this morning. You got a guy like Derek Carr for the Raiders, who's playing in his second year in the league, and he's playing out of his mind, and he's having a better year than Tannehill. And a lot of people are saying, well, he's only his second year. Tannehill is in his fourth, and So they're going to obviously compare the two, and they're saying Tannehill is regressing and things like that. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm just saying that's what some people are saying and trying to compare the two.
And that's when I start to go and try to investigate into why are the Oakland Raiders suddenly doing a lot better. And I try to look into it, and I try to see what is it that they're doing well, what is it that they're managing to accomplish that other teams are not. It looks to me, I'm looking at the Oakland Raiders stats now, and as a team, they are actually averaging 99.7 yards a game, which ironically enough ranks them 20th overall in the league. That's actually pretty low given what it is. But 99.7 yards, that means that you have at least 100 yards rushing every single game. So
Yeah.
you can, even if the number that's itself isn't high, you can tell that they are at least trying to have that balance, trying to help Derek Carr be an efficient quarterback. They're trying to make things work properly. You have.
Oh yeah, Latavius Murray is having a solid year, and of course, I think Michael Crabtree and of course Amari Cooper is really helping them out. They have a really good offensive line. I think that's very. A lot of people don't talk about that. Their offensive line play, especially in particular against the Jets last week, was very, very excellent, and they barely even touched Derek Carr. So you have to give them credit there. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Carr is playing so well.
Right. So again, it's all it's important that you actually analyze the situation and try to figure out why things are happening the way that they are. It's never as simple as just saying this guy's just better. If
Yeah.
you have to, I am the type of person who wants to eliminate all other processes before I go in and just say, well, this guy just got better. If Tannehill is regressing, I want to see, okay, what's different? What has gone away that has made Tannehill regress? Offensive line is not working right. Running game is not working right. Thusly, Tannehill doesn't look as good. Makes sense to me. Andy Dalton suddenly looks like a superstar. He's getting help from his offensive line, his running game, his defense is top 10, I believe. So you have this team around this player making them work better. You see what Hugh Jackson has been able to do for that Bengals offense, and suddenly he is this hot commodity for a head coach, and because it looks like head coaches are just getting fired left and right. So you look around, you analyze, and if you can't find any other reason for why this player is suddenly doing better or this player is suddenly doing worse, that is when I finally say, okay, maybe it looks like this guy's just gotten better. That's why I never go as simple as just saying Tannehill is failing or Dalton is doing better, because there's almost always a legitimate reason as to why a player is failing.
Yeah, I mean that goes without saying. Yeah, I was just throwing it out there. That's what people were saying. I agree with you. Right, there are other factors of why somebody's not playing in particular well and things of that nature. So yeah, I actually agree with you in that sense.
Okay, wait. I have to address this really quickly because the Dolphins end zone has been tweeting at us for a while, and he finally said something that I feel like, oh boy. Okay, so if Tannehill doesn't come outside that 15 to 20 yard box, he will continue to have the problems he's having. Like even taking away the game against the Houston Texans, where most of the games were yard after the catch, Ryan Tannehill is ahead of even Aaron Rodgers in throws that are over 20 yards. And that's not even yards after catch yards. Those are throws in the air. So I don't want to hear about the 15 to 20 yard box anymore.
I will to kind of go with that, since you're talking Tannehill, though. I do think that he is not a great pocket passer, Lewis. I think he's come a long ways at it, but he doesn't have a great pocket presence that I've seen in avoiding the pass rush and limiting mistakes. But I believe that especially now, I mean, the team can't afford to lose this game. And I think Tannehill is a good quarterback on the move, and I think that's something the team is going to have to do. Is they're going to have to change up their offense a little bit, and when they are going to be throwing the football, they need to spread it out and they need to get Tannehill on the run, because it's just been for 2 or 3 years under Joe Philbin, we just saw this continual failure where they're expecting 5 offensive linemen to pass block and run these routes, and our offensive line just gets overwhelmed. Tannehill doesn't have a great pocket presence, and it makes him throw the balls early. It makes him throw interceptions. It makes him fumble. It just isn't something that's working. And so in my mind, I think they have to get him on the run. And I know it increases his risk of injury, but I don't quite understand the point of being so protective of him if you're about ready to get eliminated from realistic wild card contention. And they really do. I mean, if they get swept by the Bills and go to 3-5, I don't see it being very likely them having much of a shot at all. And so my thought is why are you keeping your quarterback just sitting in the pocket and failing? And he will absolutely fail against Buffalo if they're going to expect Jason Fox to block Mario Williams and expect Tannehill to stand back there and try to find people down the field. And so to me, you can't do it all game long or anything, but they need to be doing a lot more of coaching him to say, all right, on this particular play set, we're going to do one, maybe two reads. And if that guy isn't there, just stop looking down the field, take off and run. Just try to make something happen with your legs. And that completely changes what a defense has to do, because then they have to really be worried about, do they have players athletic enough to contain Ryan Tannehill from running? And the reality is Ryan Tannehill can outrun a lot of linebackers in the NFL. And so they need to be pushing that a little bit. And to me, that's the answer right now for Tannehill, because I was suggesting earlier, I see him on the sideline and stuff, and he doesn't even look that mad when they're getting beat. And, I always thought in playing football there's no better way to get into the flow of the game than to get somebody and get some contact. Get him running down the field, make some plays with his legs. It'll excite the team. That helps people rally behind him. If he goes down the field and he takes a hit and he pops back up, then they start to think, look, Tannehill's doing everything he can possibly do to win this game. I better step it up too. And I really think that's the answer with Tannehill. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think he's better than at least half the quarterbacks in the league, without a doubt, from a talent standpoint where he's at. But to me, they keep getting into this same scenario over and over. And I can just see it coming this week right now. And I'm hoping that Campbell's is seeing this too, and he's not going to expect them to succeed if they're going to have Jason Fox playing right tackle and blocking Mario Williams. He was not able to handle Mario Williams. That's just the reality of it. And if they incorporate a game plan that puts Tannehill in the pocket and expecting Jason Fox to succeed, that's ludicrous. I mean, that you're just setting yourself up to fail. And also along with that, I think the team has just had way too many wasted plays. I mean, an example of a play they wasted in that New England game is they had like a 3.5 yard or a 3rd and a yard. And they had Lamar Miller so deep in the backfield that it gave the whole defense eyes on where he was at. And, of course, they shut a really obvious rundown. And I was thinking, why aren't you just pushing forward with the quarterback sneak? That's the easiest play in the book to execute to get a half a yard. And to me, it was just a wasted play. And I think they do a lot of that. They need to make sure what plays they're calling have a higher probability of succeeding and try to be a little bit less risky, I guess. I don't know the best way to say it, but I think they need to really get back to the basics and then move Tannehill around. I don't think it's that complicated, but we'll see what happens. I think we lost Lewis. You still there, Lewis?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right. Anyway, that's what I was going off with the Tannehill thing. You're right. You can't judge Tannehill really accurately when they get down. But in my opinion, it was the offense that lost the game to New England. And I know people are saying, well, look at all the points they put up. But, I mean, Tom Brady will put that much points up on anybody if you continue to just put him back on the field and turn the ball over.
Yeah.
And so you can't do that. And so now, this is probably the most important game the Dolphins have played this year for several people. I mean, obviously Dan Campbell being first and foremost, because he's playing a team that's very similar to the Dolphins right now. The Buffalo Bills brought in all these free agents. Everybody was talking about Buffalo has all these players now. They've got Rex Ryan. They're ready to compete with New England. And Buffalo's kind of fallen on their face. They've dealt with a lot of injuries, and they're a team that's up against the wall right now, just trying to get back in the playoff race, just like Miami is. I think their teams have a similar level of talent. And so to me, this is a big time. How good is your quarterback going to play, and how well is your team going to be coached? And if Dan Campbell can lead Miami and come out with a really effective game plan and win, to me, that gives him a really good inside track on maybe, keeping that job. Tannehill also, I think he needs to step up here. This is another really big game, and historically Tannehill's done very poorly in Buffalo in hostile environments like that. And so hadn't won
in Buffalo at all.
Yeah, and I don't think the games they've lost, he's played very well either, and so he's going to need to step up. Another person that not just from a price standpoint, from a monetary standpoint, is Olivier Vernon. Now with Cameron Wake out, Olivier Vernon has not done anything in my mind that would suggest he's in line for a huge contract from a team to play defensive end. Hasn't shown a great propensity to really get a lot of sacks. He isn't a really big defensive end to stop the run. And this is his time now. He needs to step up and be their primary pass rusher from the line of scrimmage. And if he doesn't do that, I mean, he's really hurting himself, for next year on free agency, if he doesn't really get that done. And so those are two players right there. I'm really looking to see where they do it. And I guess one more would be Jordan Cameron. I mean, he's had some moments here and there, and I know he's had a bum hamstring, but Jordan Cameron absolutely is going to have to restructure his contract, or he won't be on the team next year, because he has a huge jump up in what his salary is. And if he's looking to get maybe a 2 or 3 year contract from somebody that's a solid contract, he's got to be healthy and he's got to make some plays. And so those.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not to plug my stuff, but I had an article where I was talking about Cam White's injury in the Palm Beach Post, that how much a cap hit is going to be taken, and like how the Dolphins are going to have to make a lot of tough decisions next year because of the cap. Obviously, you got your son Tannehill, your son Sue, and now you got to make some really hard decisions. So Jordan Cameron will be one of them. Olivier Vernon, there's no reason to re-sign him right now because he hasn't really proven anything on the field, and they're gonna have to make a whole lot of tough decisions. So a lot of these guys are really playing for their jobs actually, so because a lot of them are not going to be back next year, to be honest with you. So if you're Olivier Vernon, it's time for excuses are over. Like, you got to step up, especially when your best pass rush out the lineup.
And it's definitely, and that if you're talking next year, the team's number one pick's got to start, producing. I mean, we've got Deion Jordan, who didn't even play this year. Devontae Parker's pretty much, in my mind, looking like he's headed towards a redshirt season, where he's not even going to play. And so you got to wonder, would they still draft him at that spot if he wasn't going to play for the year? And so, it's one of those things where Miami, just for the last almost 15 years, have been so hit or miss. I mean, you need your number one pick to come in, ideally, and be a Pro Bowl level player, but he absolutely has to be an everyday player.
Impact.
An impact player
right away.
And they just, they struggle to get number one picks to be impact players right now.
But look, the problem here is that Parker is not the same situation. It's not like Parker came in, did training camp, and still can't crack the roster. Parker missed all of training camp. He missed all of his chances at getting used to the NFL speed. He's playing catch up still. It's not as easy as you think to just come in and say, I'm going to ball out like I did in college and be done with it. Even Andrew Luck, who was considered the most NFL ready quarterback in the decade or so, he did great in his first 3 years, and now he suddenly just seems like he's just kind of falling apart at the seams. Even though he's still doing better than a lot of quarterbacks out there, he's not doing what he was doing before. So it can happen. And I'm
not by any means saying Devontae Parker isn't a good talent. He's not trying hard, but it's the result that I'm talking about. He's again a number one.
He's just saying. I just think you're saying that, not to put words, like, you need your number one pick to come in and produce right away. Like, it has nothing to do with Parker. You just need that pick to produce for you, make an impact your first year. You can't have a redshirt year like they did this year with him. Nothing against the Parker, but you need to draft somebody that's going to make an impact for you right away.
Well, I'm sure they went in
with weigh that against an offensive tackle or a really good linebacker or a good offensive tackle right now. Clearly, that's what Miami desperately needs more right now is a player at that position that can start and play at a high level. And I'm sure in a year or two, Devontae Parker could really develop. But even if he had been healthy all through camp, I don't know if he'd be any more than a situational receiver with the way Matthews is playing right now, and Landry and stuff. And now that they almost out of necessity have to run that two tight end set a lot more with Jawan James out, because I just can't think they can afford to leave Jason Fox in a lot of one-on-one matchups with Mario Williams. And so it's hard to get those guys on the field when you're only playing two wide receivers. I mean, obviously Matthews and Landry are the best two wide receivers right now in terms of catching the football and making impact plays, but they're also probably two of the slowest receivers on the team in foot speed. And so they've got a lot of work to do from an offensive standpoint. How do you get Kenny Stills vertical and stretch the field? And how do you get Jordan Cameron stretching the seam and do those things out of their two tight end formation and get that offense moving again? That's a huge challenge for them.
And then, look, Parker, and I'm just going to have to summarize this. Devontae Parker is playing catch-up. I'm sure he'll be ready to go in a year. And no, guys, this is for everybody on Twitter who's making this comparison. I don't think he's going to be a Till Green 2.0. If that's the mentality that you have, then we might as well never draft another wide receiver again. Because if you're not willing to take chances on talented players, then why bother? You can't get the number one overall pick every year, because that just means that you suck every single year. So I want to bring this up real quick. This is we're taking callers. So if anybody wants to call in on the show, the number to call is 1-954-376-5704. That's 1-954-376-5704. We're willing to take your calls, and we want to hear what you guys have to say. So if you want to call in, just go ahead and do that, and we'll take your call. So I want to transition a little bit, and we're going to be talking about what's going to happen in Buffalo. And needless to say, that's going to be a very interesting rematch, especially since we got beat down under Joe Philbin. And honestly, the home opener looked like it was a horrible, horrible lost cause right from the beginning. The Dolphins looked dead. They looked like they didn't want to be there. They looked like a bunch of zombies, and it was a big part of why Dan Campbell came in to begin with. And I honestly believe, I feel this way, and I'm not one of those who buys in that Campbell's leadership has not done anything, because I can't imagine that anybody looks at this Dolphins team and says that Campbell has not changed anything. Because, and Antwan, you probably be able to attest to this, it looks like the players suddenly have this new life. They have this new intensity, and even if the athleticism itself hasn't changed, the intensity of a team matters. You look at Jarvis Landry and you look at Rashard Matthews, they're not the most physically talented guys out there, but their intensity, their effort level, it's beyond description, and it's what has made them such useful players in this offense. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. To your first point, when Campbell came on, like, it was just a whole new energy for the team, and they brought up a spark, as it showed in the Tennessee game and the Houston game. So yeah, and to your second point, I think they're really using the receivers and everybody else in a different way, and I think that's really helped the offense. And Rashard Matthews he's made himself a lot of money. I don't know if the Dolphins are not going to re-sign him, I would assume, but I'm sure it's going to be a team that signs him for a lot of money. So to answer your question, I think just bringing Campbell there, and it's just really sparked the team, and united something there with the club. And we'll see. I'm curious to see this game coming up, because, like I said, it's a big game for both teams, and you're gonna have to. What they're gonna have to do is just really be out physical they're out physical the Buffalo Bills, and that's something Rex Ryan loves to do. It's hard to beat Rex at his own game, per se, and that's what the Dolphins are really gonna have to do in order to win this game.
But this is a different team, though. I would say suddenly these Dolphins want to be physical.
Yeah, I do. It is a different team, but it's still Rex Ryan, and they want to run the ball. They do the same thing, like you said before. Like, they do a lot of the same things. They're very similar as far as skill set and things like that. So that's why I say it's gonna be a real interesting game. I think it's gonna be a really good game as well. So I'm curious to see how this goes in particular. But it's a team that can really be physical and run the ball, and that's exactly what they're going to have to do and get back to that, what they did the first two games in the Dan Campbell era.
And I believe that Kyle Williams, their defensive tackle, is currently not playing.
Yeah.
So that should definitely help things out.
Yeah.
This definitely is not the best Buffalo team I'd say they're facing, because, I mean, do you know if who's going to quarterback yet? They announced, is it going to be Taylor or Manuel?
Yeah, Taylor's. He's playing. He's been practicing all week, so he's playing.
So they'll be going against Taylor, and so he's got a dinged
Taylor's
up knee
back
or something, right? So I assume he's still not
Yeah,
going to
he
be.
had sprained MCL.
All right, so I'm just guessing he's not going to be running the ball a ton. I guess you might be surprised, but I don't expect him to be a huge running threat if he's coming off a MCL first game back. But with that being said, I think what Miami has to do is they've got to be extremely aggressive on defense, because I think Buffalo really is fairly easy to beat if Miami can score points, because you want Buffalo having to throw the football, because they don't have it. Watkins has been dinged up. I don't know. Is Percy Harvin even showing up right now? I mean, their skill players have been dinged up and they haven't really been producing. And so I guarantee what Rex Ryan wants to do is he wants to try to feature pounding the football and use Charles Clay and not make his quarterbacks have to throw a lot of high pressure passes with an intense pass rush, when they know they have to pass. So I don't think Buffalo is built right now to suddenly throw 14 points up right away on the Dolphins defense throwing the football. They're going to want to do a lot more of ground and pound football against the Dolphins. So to me, again, the key to beating Buffalo is the offense needs to get down, get some points early, get a couple touchdowns in the first quarter. Then the Dolphins can really dictate the game to Buffalo, because you're making them play a game they don't want to play. If Miami, on the other hand, doesn't really successfully run the football and they don't move the football very well, and they give Buffalo field position and allow Buffalo to play that game, then I don't think Miami's going to do too well, because I just don't see them doing well in that environment. With Ryan Tannehill just has historically not played well in hostile environments when they have to throw the football. And so to me, it's really going to come down. I know that sounds good. It's obviously points wins games, but whoever gets points up early on, I think, is going to have a huge advantage in this game.
Yeah, obviously that's always the case. The Dolphins need to get a quick lead on. They need to make sure that they kind of do a reverse situation with what happened against the Buffalo Bills at home. We seem to have lost Antwan. I think we may be having some technical difficulties here. Trying to get him back, seeing what happens. Until then, we're just going to continue talking about this sort of thing. And more tweets coming from the Dolphins end zone. And essentially, he's not convinced that that Dan Campbell has really changed much of anything. Essentially, he's saying that intensity does not replace athleticism. And I don't know. I don't think I can really agree with that, simply because even though they were bad teams by all intents and purposes, but let's bear in mind the Titans were a top 10 defense before they came to Miami, and we wound up beating them down. And no, that was in Tennessee, correct?
What are you talking about, Willis?
The Titans game. That was in Tennessee.
Yeah, the Tennessee game that was in Tennessee, and now we're playing in the big other one was in Miami, obviously the Texans game. And I do think Dan Campbell brought a lot more intensity to the game. The team just looked, for lack of a better word, lackluster in the losses to Buffalo, especially, and to the Jets. So I think Campbell has improved the drive of the team, I guess. And I thought they came out, especially on defense, very intense in that Patriots game. And I feel pretty confident he'll have them ready to play intensely in the Buffalo game. But intensity is only so good unless you've got good game planning and good play calling and throughout the game, and obviously execution. And so I guess my thought this week is they've had 10 days, and he's got to deal with now the tackle missing, which everybody in the NFL has to deal with, players going in and out. So yeah, they've lost Wake and they're missing the right tackle, John James. But I'm expecting to see how Dan Campbell adjusts, and I'm expecting him to come out with a really good game plan. Because if Miami just comes out and they kind of do the same old, and get kicked around again by Buffalo, then my opinion would be that he's right. Dan Campbell hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, they're still losing the same games the same way, and you're looking for more of a culture change in how they're approaching these games. And so, I've mentioned some of the things, like I think they need to be very aggressive on defense, attack the quarterback, and really attack the run, and make Buffalo beat them having to throw high pressure down the field, because I just don't think Buffalo is really geared to do it. I think they got to avoid doing a lot of just 5 linemen blocking and 3 and 4 wide receiver sets a lot in that game, because I just don't think they're going to be able to stop Rex Ryan from blitzing in and put enough pressure on Tannehill to make mistakes. And I think they need to have a ready-to-execute screen game. There's no reason in 10 days that Dan Campbell and that staff couldn't have several screens that are new that teams have not seen yet, that they're ready to implement, execute in that game, because Rex Ryan has never changed. He is a pressure defensive coordinator. He loves to blitz, and Tannehill hasn't handled the blitz particularly well. And Rex Ryan's going to be blitzing in this game. You know he is. You don't necessarily know who's blitzing or when, but you know that on a statistical level, they're going to throw a lot of blitzes at Miami, and so there's no better way to attack that than do kind of an Andy Reid offense, if you will, where you throw a lot of screens to the running back. I want to see Miami getting the ball to Kenny Stills, Jarvis Landry, and Lamar Miller in space and get our linemen running around, pulling and pulling on sweeps and screens and using their mobility. If we don't do those things, and again, if we just play, sit in the pocket, try to throw the ball downfield, and then hold out that defensive line, you're playing right into their hands again.
And I think that, and hopefully they can give the ball to Kenny Stills without like smashing Tannehill's nose in. So that was that was embarrassing for everybody, I'm sure.
That's comedy, but I guess it could. I don't know how much that's changed Matt Moore's effectiveness, but it could, if Tannehill gets hurt or something. I don't know where Matt Moore is at.
Or maybe you should let Matt Moore play anyway, because Tannehill sucks, right?
No, I don't necessarily think that.
No.
So, I think Tannehill is playing at a good. I don't think Tannehill sucks. I'm not saying that at all. But
I know, but
he needs to play better in bigger games. I want to see that out of him. That's
fine.
Fair.
That's fine. That's fair. I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to say it's not his fault at all. Obviously, he's the quarterback who in question, so of course he has to be held accountable for some responsibility. All I'm trying to say to these guys is that look around you and look around the other teams. Why are they succeeding? It's not because of their quarterbacks. It's because the teams around them have functioned. Russell Wilson barely got past a Matt Castle-led Cowboys. I mean, come on. The Cowboys, their defense is nothing special. And Matt Castle at quarterback, give me a break.
Yeah, but, again, the job of the coaching staff is to utilize the players that are on your team and their talents. And I do believe Miami has a talented football team. I don't think we're dealing with a team that has had so many injuries and we're playing guys that are just complete mismatches on a talent standpoint. We just need to work out ways to get the ball in their hands in situations they can succeed in. And, again, to me, forcing the ball to like Jarvis Landry and Rashard Matthews into double coverage, as they seem to be in running routes where the receivers bunch up a lot together. I haven't been really thrilled with the game plan and the offenses they've been using, and a lot of that I'm referring to is the Joe Philbin era, and I want to see if Dan Campbell can change that. And in terms of Dan Campbell, if he gets the team over 500, if they finish 9-7, I think the job is his. If they're 8-8, I think he's in consideration, and if they're under 8-8, I think he's probably not the right guy for the job. That's my opinion.
I think that Dan Campbell. Here's the thing, and I'm gonna go into this because a lot of people are discussing it because of the Bengals game that's going on right now. If we can't get somebody like Hugh Jackson, who has the same mentality of making sure that the players around them are getting utilized to their best ability, creative play calling, doing what he's been able to do for the Cincinnati Bengals so far, and that he will be a head coach somewhere next year, because there's no way after this turnaround for Cincinnati that he's not going to be a head coach somewhere. If we cannot get somebody like a Hugh Jackson, I would want to keep Dan Campbell, if nothing else, other than the fact that we've been hearing about it ever since he took over. Campbell connects with these guys. He knows what it takes to be a player in the NFL. He knows what they need to be doing, and it seems to me that they are. I don't know how I can word this in a way that is easily understandable. It's like these guys have a new passion for the game of football, and it's because their head coach is one of them, for lack of a better term. We joke about it, but if Dan Campbell really wanted to, he is still very capable of getting into football shape and going back out there and playing tight end if he wanted to. I really believe
Hell,
that.
he is in football shape.
I only saw the guy once, so I don't know how. It's not like I get up close and personal and analyze that sort of thing. So
No, I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying it's easily like the guys that he's in great shape for him to be 40 years old. Like he can go out there and put on the pass right now.
I agree he's in great shape, and I agree he's a great motivator, but I want to see him out-coach Rex Ryan. And
okay, but that's not hard, Chad. It's Rex.
Well, then he should be able to out-coach him. So you're going to have to watch the game, and, if we, again, are doing a lot of wasted plays that look like they probably were doomed to begin with, then I put that on Dan Campbell, because ultimately he's the head of this team right now. He has control over what kind of plays he wants run, who the ball's going to go to in general. Like if he wants to design a lot of screens, he can do it. If he wants to throw the ball down the field, he can make that happen. And I'm a big believer in results. And, I know this is a long time ago, but Shula, when he was here, he almost never had losing seasons. It was extremely rare. And the good coaches rarely do have losing seasons. There's a reason why the Ravens, even though they're on a down year, there's a reason they're always competitive. There's a reason Pittsburgh's always competitive. There's a reason the Patriots are always competitive. And that's because they're well coached. I mean, I know they have good quarterbacks, but they're very well coached. And my thought is again, if Dan Campbell is a really good coach, he should be able to get this team to 8-8 with where they're at right now. I mean, especially with the amount of home games they have left in their schedule remaining, he should be able to coach this team to be an 8-8 team at worst. That's my opinion. If he can't do that, then maybe he's in consideration still because he's motivated the people. But you got to be looking at maybe Josh McDaniels from the Patriots, or is Peyton going to be available from the Saints, and guys that obviously are more qualified at out coaching people from an X's and O's standpoint. So that's the challenge. Is I think Dan Campbell is a lot smarter than what national media is giving him credit for. I think the guys like Antwan that are around the team, when you hear him talk, he's a very smart guy. Dan Campbell is, and I think he has a lot of exciting potential right now, but he's got to prove it. I think that always, if you get away from results-based football, then you always end up just being a team that makes excuses for everything on why you don't succeed.
And I would agree with that, Chad, but we talked about this last week, and I'm going to bring this back up. I don't consider Dan Campbell for all intents and purposes, yes, he is responsible because head coach, but at the same time, it's that kind of micromanaging style of doing things, like being in charge of this, having final say on this, doing everything on this. Yes, that's a head coach's job description, but it's that kind of mentality that sunk Joe Philbin. This whole idea of I'm in charge, everybody else follows my lead, and I don't care what you guys have to say. And I'm not saying that you said that's what Campbell needs to do, but that's kind of what people look at now when you see head coach. Everything falls on this guy's shoulders. Everything falls on whatever happens here because final say. What if, and I'm not, and again, this isn't, I don't consider this a knock on Campbell because he's even said, like, right from the beginning, he's suggested that he's not big on X's and O's. That's not his way of doing things. That's why, this is my speculation, that's why he brought in Al Saunders to help Bill Lazor with the offense. That's why he promoted Darren Rizzi to be his assistant head coach, because he and Saunders and Lazor and Anarumo and all those guys, his coordinators, are much more privy to the X's and O's part of the offense and the defense. And Campbell's job is to make sure that these guys are ready to go on Sunday. And if that's really all he's there for, then I'm not bothered by that. I'm really not, because under Philbin, like, all the X's and O's were ready to go. You knew what you had the game plan. It was there, ready to go. And now the players needed to execute. it didn't look like they wanted to execute. And I'm sure they'll say otherwise because it's a PR move, but it really looked like these guys wanted nothing to do with it. Now Campbell shows up. He doesn't know the X's and O's so much. He has these coordinators doing their jobs and running all this stuff, and he'll put in some input to make sure, hey, I want them to be physical, and then that's perfectly fine. But suddenly, even though he doesn't know all the X's and O's, everybody has said it except for a few, that this Dolphins team looks dramatically different. And I understand what you're saying about results football, Chad. I'm not trying to dismiss that. Results are eventually what it all boils down to. You either win or you don't. But I'm looking at the results of Campbell's influence, and even if they have, and we're still 2-1 in the Campbell era. And the one is to the New England Patriots, who it doesn't look like anybody's going to be able to stop this year. If they lose to Buffalo badly, then yes, I will be concerned. But I honestly don't think that Buffalo is anywhere in New England's league. So I think that this Dolphins offense, with Campbell in charge, motivating them, leading them, giving them some idea of what they need to be doing and how they need to be doing it, and more than that, making them want to do it, which is the big difference between Philbin and Campbell. I think this team will be able to take on the Buffalo Bills, especially with guys like Kyle Williams, who is so necessary for their defensive line to function. Marcel Darius is really good, but it was the combination of him and Kyle Williams that made it such a potent defensive line.
Yeah, you're saying, echoing what I'm saying, other than I'm saying that's an expectation. I agree with you completely. I don't think Buffalo is nearer in the league that New England is right now, and I think Buffalo is very similar to the Dolphins. They have a lot of talented players on that team right now, but the reality is I know Taylor's had some good games, but I do not believe he's an elite quarterback right now. I still want to see him beat me throwing the football down the field as opposed to letting Buffalo just control the game on the ground at the line of scrimmage. But I expect Dan Campbell, if he is that coach, it was him that brought Al Sanders in. They did get rid of the defensive coordinator, and they got Rizzo and all the coaching shifting. And if Dan Campbell isn't able to get this team at least to 500 through the rest of the season, I guess my thought would be, what kind of staff and what do you think he's going to do next year to be better? And so to me, that he has to get this team to 500 or better to me to have that job next year, because to me that's like an audition that he didn't do well in if he doesn't do that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Chad. And again, I'm not trying to disprove anything that you're saying. It's perfectly valid. All I'm trying to say is that I wouldn't pin, if the Dolphins don't win, just based on what I've been seeing from the players, even if they lose, but they lose going down fighting, I'd still be willing to give Campbell a shot, because it's not like they just laid down and died. These guys were willing to ram through a wall for him. Reminiscent of a Tony Sperano, by the way, but he also had the same issues, and he didn't even have the luxury of having a really good quarterback like he did in 2008 when Chad Pennington came in and pretty much revolutionized the position with his efficiency. We seem to have lost Antwan again, so we're going to be working on getting him back. He seems to be having phone issues, so we're going to see if we can't get him in here real soon. Chad, I want to ask you this, and oh wait, I'm sorry. Antwan has he's left the building, guys. So that's it for Antwan Staley. You can follow him at Antwan Staley on Twitter, and he's with Sports Talk Florida and Pro Player Insiders. He's got awesome insight on everything that goes on with the Miami Dolphins. He's one of the beat writers, really. So if you guys need a cool guy to follow, make sure you give him a follow. And we really appreciate you coming on with us, Antwan. We really appreciate that. So once again, if anybody wants to call into the show themselves, the number to call is 1-954 1-376-5704. That's 1-954-376-5704. So we're willing to listen to anything you have to say. If you want to call in and talk to us, we're willing to listen. You got some complaints, you got some grievances to air out, or if you just want to think you have something interesting to contribute, we're willing to listen. So Buffalo's coming. I'm honestly not thinking that it's going to be – I think we're going to win this game. I've been saying all week long that I think the Dolphins are going to come back and beat Buffalo in Buffalo for the first time in, what is it, like 3 years or something like that. So and it really does boil down to what has Dan Campbell done for this Dolphins offense? What has Dan Campbell done for this Dolphins defense? This whole team in general has looked re-energized, and it's this new mentality of making sure that there's balance in the offense, making sure that the defense doesn't have to be out there most of the time because we're worried about getting 3 and outs because the offense isn't functioning the way it's supposed to due to the fact that the defense of the opponent team has pinned their ears back and is just attacking Tannehill nonstop. That was the issue with Joe Philbin, and it seems that Dan Campbell's doing everything to avoid that. And I understand the game against New England was bad, but they were facing a team that really is looking like nothing is going to stop them. It's going to take like another undefeated team to get in their way and make sure that they don't do it. And I'm going to ask you this, Chad. Looking at I'm going to pull up the rest of the Dolphins schedule right now, and I'm going to ask you because if we looked back on if we still had Joe Philbin as our head coach, I would look at this upcoming schedule and I would say that most of these games are losses. So I'm going to read through the schedule now. We got the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. I think we're going to win that game. The Eagles, with their little issues with Sam Bradford, or maybe they'll finally make the switch to butt fumble like the 49ers have decided to bench Kaepernick for Blaine Gabbert. Oh, that's a great idea, right? Isn't it? We got Dallas on November 22nd, and supposedly Tony Romo's going to be back, and I don't know how well that's going to go for them because Romo seems to get hit a lot, and he seems to get hurt all the time. We got the Jets, we got the Ravens, we got the Giants, the Chargers, the Colts, and the Patriots once more right at the end of the season at home. So, Chad, what do you think? How much of a chance do you give the Dolphins to make a wild card or get in the playoffs, or do you think that we have a shot, or is it essentially just Dan Campbell fighting for his job for next year?
Oh, no, I think we have a shot just because there's such a disparity in the league right now. I mean, there's the teams that are way up on their divisions, and then there's the teams that are real similar scenarios of where the Dolphins are. I don't believe that the Raiders are a significantly better team than the Dolphins. I don't believe Buffalo is. I don't believe the Jets are. And so the reality is it's just it's kind of a have or have not league right now. I think that Miami's going to have to win this game in Buffalo to have much of a realistic shot, because if they lose this game to Buffalo, then Buffalo already has to finish a game behind Miami for them to beat Buffalo out, which seems unlikely. And then, we're going to have to go into New York, and the Jets are actually probably a better team right now than Buffalo is. And going in and beating them in New York is not going to be easy. Dallas, at least that's in Miami, but that's not going to be an easy game at all. Dallas is still a pretty good football team, in my opinion.
Especially if Romo is back.
Yeah, if they don't have Romo back, that'd make a pretty significant difference. But so there's none of those games are give-me's, but I don't believe it's teams that are a lot better than Miami. This is where it comes down to, what do we have in Dan Campbell? Because when you take all the chips against all those players, I don't see Miami being significantly better or worse than pretty much any of the teams you named off, other than the Patriots right now, obviously, are a better football team than the majority of the teams in the league right now. So those are winnable games, and if Dan Campbell is able to get the team to, especially 9-7 or 8-8, then I think he's been given a team. He figured out how to utilize it, and it wasn't even his team to pick to begin with. And if he's able to do that, that tells me he's a pretty solid coach. He's got his players ready. He has them ready to execute, and all that goes along with that. So I'm not as optimistic as you are right now against Buffalo, just because I'm a little skittish on Tannehill. That's what I'm worried about, because again, he has not shown me that he can rise to the occasion in big games in hostile environments, and that's exactly what we're going into. It's going to be probably a sellout game with a loud, hostile crowd, and can the team manage to handle that? And they're going to have a hard time audible in. Are they going to still execute in that environment? And historically, they've shown that they will not do that. And so Dan Campbell is going to have to make a big change in the team and their game planning for that to happen.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this, Chad, because it feels like you're saying how you're skittish on Tannehill, and you keep bringing up how he's not clutch in hostile environment. is it more Tannehill you're worried about, or is it simply the fact that we're on the road that you're worried about? Do you think that if we were at, like, obviously the home field advantage is a big deal, but are you more worried about Tannehill himself, or are you just more worried about the environment itself?
In Tannehill in that situation is what I'm concerned about, because he's the quarterback of the team. Oh, it's not just the road. The games that are huge, the significant games, and so last year we had a game, but what lost that game was going 3 and out on offense when we had the Packers beat. All we had to do was convert 1 first down, and they chose to be really conservative. But I expect Tannehill to make a big play right there and win the football game. Very similar situation when we lost to Detroit last year. Again, we just needed to get a first down. We had the Detroit beat, but we ended up giving them the back end, trying to rely on our defense to win yet again. And for this year, we blew 2 teams out. So, I mean, there is no pressure there. Tannehill didn't have to do a whole lot in either the Tennessee or the Houston game, because he just had to deliver pass. And those were not high-stake games. If they lose, our season's probably over, but it wasn't like, wow, this is, all the marbles are on the table. And I'm expecting Tannehill. We need to have a game where if it gets to the 3rd or 4th quarter and it's a 3-point game and we've got the football, he needs to make some really big time throws to win the game for the team. That's what I'm looking for out of him. And it's not so much a statistic. I'm not looking about how many completions he has or anything. I'm looking at when everything is on the line, we've got to have a game winning drive. Can Tannehill do that? And I know he's done it here and there, but it's been pretty rare that he's been that guy. Most of our wins are us relying on our defense to close a game out so that Tannehill can just come out and kneel it. Or it's been, the last 2 weeks before New England, we just had such big leads, we didn't have to really worry about it.
Okay, but I'd have to look back at the numbers, Chad, because it seems like the things that you're suggesting, you brought up the last year's games and all that. If I'm correct, I'm going to actually look up the stats right now, because I'm curious as to what exactly happened last year. I believe which one of the games that you're talking about is the Dolphins versus the Jets, right?
I was talking about the Packers and Lions games.
Well, but we could have made the playoffs, and if we had beaten those 2 teams.
That was 2 years ago that you're talking about, when we had to win either the Buffalo or the Jets game, and we would have made the playoffs.
Okay.
That was 2 years ago. Last year, the Jets game, both teams were pretty much eliminated when Miami lost it, but that was a pretty meaningless game. So other than Mike Wallace quitting, that was about the only highlight of that game.
Sure.
But no, those games, but yeah, I mean, I haven't really looked at those games and we lost them, but I'm looking for situations where we're either getting the ball with like 1 to 2 minutes left, that Tannehill led the team down to get a win, even if it's leading them down into the field goal range to kick a field goal for the win. Or on the flip side, games where it's a close game, 3 or 7 points or less, let's say, and Tannehill got the ball. So we had the ball and the lead, and all we had to do was convert like 1 to 2 first downs to end the game. I don't think he's done a lot of that successfully. That's what I'm worried about.
Okay, so I just pulled up the stats, Chad, and don't take this as me trying to bash you or anything. I'm just reading off numbers for you. You brought up the Green Bay Packers game and the Dolphins game. Ryan Tannehill went 20 for 31, 244 yards, 7.9 yards per attempt. He got two touchdowns, 2 picks. He wound up getting sacked. I'm trying to see now. Is that 1 or? I think he got sacked once for 7 yards. Okay, that's fine. But I'm looking at the rushing stats, and they're not good, man. Lamar Miller, 14 carries, 53 yards. That's less than 4 yards per carry. You got Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill himself, he carried the ball 3 times and he got 49 yards. I think he should have run the ball more that game then. And you got Noshan, who got hurt in that game. He ran the ball 6 times, 10 yards. So essentially that game, the running game was non-existent, and they were counting on Tannehill to do it all by himself all over again. And that's what we've been saying all along, that he's not.
Which game are you referring to, Lewis?
This is Green Bay.
Yeah, statistically, I don't have an issue. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. My question being the Green Bay game.
You're asking about his clutch moments.
I'm asking the last series of that game when the Dolphins had the ball, what did they do on offense? What did Ryan Tannehill do on offense? Did he throw a first down pass, or did he not accomplish that? That's what I'm, again, results based only is Tannehill has the chance to have the ball in his hands and win the football game, and he did not do that. We tried to rely on our defense to hold Aaron Rodgers back.
I believe that last play, Chad, on third down, he got flushed out of the pocket and had to throw it away. Otherwise, he would have taken a sack, though. Correct? I think that's
well,
that's what I remember.
That, yeah, and that again, you can say, well, it was a bad play call, which I'm not saying that maybe he's been getting bad coaching, but again, he was not able to make a play to win the game. I'm saying he hasn't been in very many scenarios where he's done that, and I can remember him beating New England. Maybe it was 2 years ago where he hit.
That was the Michael Thomas game, right?
Yeah, we were behind in that game late, and he drove him down and threw a touchdown to I'm trying to remember that kick returner's name we had. He ended up going to Buffalo. Thigpen. He hit Thigpen in the flat with a big pass for a touchdown, and then Thomas intercepted it at the end of the game. But that was a game where we were actually behind late in the game, whereas if we did not go down and score, we would have lost. And so Tannehill led them there. That's the game I remember him doing that. But other than that game,
that was a 2-minute offense, though, right?
Well, Tannehill was running a 2-minute offense.
Right, and we've seen how well he does.
He succeeded there. My point, though, other than that game, I'm trying to think of a time where Tannehill led this team down and won a game that was on the line where he had to lead the team down the field. Now, you can always say, well, he had bad play calls. He was under pressure, or the guy dropped it. But, I mean, all those are valid reasons on why it doesn't work. But my question is has he shown over 4 years that he's a guy that wins those type of games in those situations? And whether it's his fault or not, it just hasn't happened. And I think if we're going to be a playoff contender, we're going to have to be able to score in the fourth quarter with the ball in our hands, or we're going to have to be able to execute well enough to run the clock out. Not, again, get the ball back when our defense held them on 4 down so we can go out and kneel it. That doesn't really count. We need to not allow them to even get a chance back on the field, because I'm pretty confident that's 2 wins last year if all we could do is execute a first down on offense to run the clock out against both Green Bay and Detroit. We had the lead in both those games, and then we had to try to rely on our defense to prevent them from going down and scoring versus just running the clock out.
Are you saying you want him to get kills, Chad?
Not kills. I want him to be that guy that steps up. And again, I think he can be. It definitely isn't me saying I'm anti-Tannehill.
I know.
I think they've got to put him into positions to do it. And, you had a good point in that Green Bay game. I remember the formation even. They had the receivers all bunched together. They had like 3 guys standing within basically could hold hands, and they're just sitting there in a zone. Tannehill probably didn't have anybody to throw it to. But what I would say is get him outside the pocket, get him running, and you know what? If he takes off and tries to run for a first down 6-7 times a game, I think he'll be a lot more effective. You've got to give him a chance to succeed at that. And we could easily, let's say we make the playoffs or make the playoffs next year, we could get into a situation where both quarterback and kicker, both guys that have to perform in pressure situations, have almost never performed in pressure situations just because we're hardly ever in those situations. Well, think of this year. So our first game we beat Washington. How did we beat Washington?
Barely.
Jarvis Landry's who was the one who came up big in that game. That was not Ryan Tannehill leading us down the field to score late. That was Jarvis Landry running a punt back for a touchdown. Then, we were not able to do that against Jacksonville. And, then we just got blown out against the
Bills
Buffalo
and the Jets.
And then we blew 2 teams out. And so,
but that was after the regime change.
It was. And obviously Tannehill played well. He even broke the record for completion. So, again, he's a capable quarterback. He can make all the throws. But that's my concern with him is, when it's going to be a tight, tough game, and we have to have him perform, is he going to be ready for that challenge? And we don't, to me, the jury's still out on that for him.
And, it sounds like what you're saying is that you're worried that Tannehill is too conservative. Would I be right in that assumption?
No, I want to see him, make an incredible throw at that time. Going like 22 of 25 is great, but when you're one incompletion there late, is the game would have won the game if it's a completion and you lose, it doesn't do you a lot of good. I'd like to see him be that guy, and I don't know that the players right now even have the confidence that he's the guy who's going to lead them back down the field. That, when you talk about the great quarterbacks, like I can tell you right now, the Patriots probably aren't even that nervous going into the middle of third quarter being down 14 points because they're thinking, we've got Tom Brady. We can score 14 points in 2 minutes. Same thing. That's what the Packers are thinking. That's what the Dolphins used to think when we had Marino. You didn't really worry that much if a team goes down and scores a touchdown and you get a fumble and they score again because you think, well, we've got Dan Marino. He can score 14 points like nothing. And so that's what I want to see is Tannehill. Is he that kind of player, or is he somebody they should just scale back and say he's never going to be anything but just try to have him be an efficient game manager? He isn't a guy that can go out and win a game.
You're looking for elite traits is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm looking at him to play his best when the game's on the line. That's what I'm looking for. And I know you can't do that every time, but I can't think of very many scenarios where he ever has had to do that, or he did do that either way. There's always going to be a reason that a blocking broke down, like I said, or something like that. But at some point, you got to say, man, he just has never really had to lead us back to get a win late in the game. And so you don't really notice it because they'll go 3 and out, and then we're trying to call timeouts to get the ball back, and then you're in a dire situation where it's very, very low odds you're going to make it. But my question is what about like when there's 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter and Tannehill does have the ball, that's when he needs to lead the team down the field and get a score. And it's going to be interesting. But one other thing too that nobody's been saying a whole lot of, and I understand it from the standpoint of the stadium, they're upgrading it, but the Dolphins did not do anybody any favors on the team, Joe Philbin, Ryan Tannehill, or anything, with how they did the schedule. They intentionally moved all of the away games up, and so Miami has just been on the road over and over and over. And now we didn't even get the home game against the Jets thrown in with that. And that's just a lot to ask for the teams to be trying to always win these games on the road. And so that part of it is that as well. You have to wonder if Miami had maybe a couple more home games at this point in the season, if they would maybe have another win.
Yeah, I understand, Chad. We got a caller on the line. Caller, reveal yourself.
Hello?
Is this it's my buddy Duke. Yep. What's up, man?
Not much, watching the Appalachian State game.
Oh, how's it going?
They're winning by 4 at halftime.
All right. So, that's I assume you're happy then?
Oh yeah, this is for they're playing Arkansas State, who is the both teams are undefeated in the Sun Belt, and this is for the top spot. And they've each got 3 games left to play, but they're already bowl eligible. And if they win out, they could get a decent bowl and potentially even be ranked, which is pretty good considering Appalachian State was FCS or Division I AA 2 years ago. So.
Well, sounds good to me, man. So, we're talking some Ryan Tannehill right now, and that's everybody's favorite subject, right? So, yeah. I'm going to ask you, since you just joined in, how would you have, I guess the question that we should ask is, how would you evaluate Ryan Tannehill's performance overall, and do you think he needs to find a way for himself as an individual to kind of make big plays when the time counts? Like, when do you expect him to start being clutch?
I mean, there's not really been a situation aside from maybe the Washington game where he's needed to be necessarily clutch this season. I mean, the Jacksonville game, but I mean, in each of those situations, I mean, there was all kinds of other issues that just didn't work out. I mean, if you look at the divisional games that he's played in, he's been behind pretty much a lot in each of those games. He, of course, they got the 2 wins over Tennessee and the Texans, and those are blowout wins. So, aside from maybe the Jacksonville game, where he actually, I thought, played pretty well, he not really had that kind of opportunity. Now, it just depends on kind of what your goal is with stuff, and what your thoughts are on what he needs to do. I mean, I've seen this stuff people say about, well, he needs to carry the team. What exactly does that mean? I mean, I've never seen anybody give me a good explanation of it in terms of skill set, in terms of what it is that the quarterback needs to do. Exactly how is he carrying the team? I mean, is that making better throws? Is it better decisions, better pocket presence? I mean, I don't know what. I mean, it's not like he can throw the ball to himself and score touchdowns. So, I mean, if his receivers aren't getting open, if the offensive line's not blocking, I don't know what else he can do. So, I mean, if I would judge his performance, I'd say he's been good. Not great, not elite, but he's not been bad. I mean, he's had some bad decisions. He made some poor throws and poor ball placement in the Washington game, but for the most part, he's played pretty well, I thought, in terms of what you ask of him. I think there was something going on Twitter today about in the New England game, he had 2 third-down plays of anything under 8 yards. The rest were 8 yards or longer. So in that game, he faced 3rd and 8 or longer. The majority of his third downs. I mean, you just can't succeed that way in the NFL. You just can't. And so, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts to this. I mean, yeah. I mean, what I would like to see from Tannehill personally, I would like to see him take a few more chances. I know he's doing that some this year. He is throwing the ball downfield a lot more. But I would just like to see him take a few more chances, put the ball up there, kind of like we saw that throw against New England where he threw the ball downfield to Jordan Cameron. Just, trust his guys to go up and make a play. Throw the ball out there, even when they're not exactly perfectly open. That would be what I want to see from him a little more.
Oh, yeah, so what we were talking about a little bit, just to fill you in too, Duke, is my point I was making with Tannehill is I named a New England game maybe a couple years ago where he brought it, the game in which Michael Thomas ended the game. We were behind in that game, and he brought us back down the field to win that game. But other than that game, I couldn't remember one where Ryan Tannehill led a game-winning drive down the field to win the game. And I was pointing to the Packers and Detroit games last year as games where we went 3 and out when we had the ball in the lead when the game was nearly over, and we just had to convert to win that game. And Tannehill didn't do anything there to win the game. Now, I completely understand that it's always circumstantial. Your blocking breaks down, your receivers don't get open, your receivers drop it. That's part of that. But my concern with Tannehill is if we are going to be a playoff team, we're going to have to be able to close games out at the end on offense, or we're going to have to be able to drive down and score with maybe 1 to 2 minutes left. And Ryan Tannehill just simply hasn't done that. Now, granted, this year, you're right, there has been a lot of opportunities, but what I was pointing out to Lewis was Jarvis Landry was one who made the play to win that Washington game with his punt return. That was not Ryan Tannehill leading down the team down and scoring that win to win that game. And I don't think we can be a playoff contender unless we get that mentality where if we're down, 3 points with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, we give him the ball, we've got the game. And so I'm hoping we can see some of that. I mean, I would rather blow a team out, of course, but to me, that's what the difference between playoffs and not playoffs is going to be.
Well, I can think of 2 other games. There was the Seattle game in 2012, and there was the Vikings game last year, which the Dolphins defense did all they could do to give that game away. And he came back and led a game-tying drive late in the fourth. I think one big difference with that is if you look at, I think you have to look at the coaching. The team was soft, and the team was not very. They were very conservative, possibly conservative, playing under Joe Philbin. And I think that's one major change. We talk about Dan Campbell and bringing the toughness and all that stuff. And I think that's part of what you have to have in the fourth quarter of games, especially in close games. You can't play soft and conservative and kind of that, ho-hum kind of way Joe Philbin played. You've got to be able to run the ball. You've got to be able to play tough. That's when you need to be the toughest. Yeah, it's easy to pound your chest and be tough in the first quarter. When it's a 3-point game in the fourth quarter and you've got the ball and you need to hold on to the ball and run it, or you need to get down the field. That's when you need to show that toughness. That's when, as an offensive line, you've got to make sure you don't fold. When you a receiver, you got to make sure you win your one-on-ones. And we just haven't seen that yet with Campbell. I want to see that. I want to see if the team's complexion changes in that situation, because we've seen everything on Philbin, and it's been kind of one of those, kind of like Philbin, just not very good drives. I like what they will do under Campbell, what he does in that situation, how he coaches them, to see kind of exactly how they're going to do.
Yeah, I agree. You're saying it as a whole team, but the reality is this team really hasn't been in many situations where they need to have that. It's right. So far this year, it's been, we're either way behind or way ahead in the games of late. But in a game like Buffalo, that's what I'm looking for. Is I don't believe we're going to just go up to Buffalo and blow them out. And so it's going to be 60 minutes of hard-hitting football, and it's going to be which teams can execute and which teams don't fold in the fourth quarter. And so, so far, I was saying to Lewis, we really haven't seen Ryan Tannehill have to lead the team down for a game-winning drive. And even also scary is we haven't seen our kicker have to kick a game-winning field goal really so far. So it's a little concerning to be up at a hostile stadium like that, and to wonder if the team's going to be able to do that. But that's going to be a really good barometer, if you will, of how the team has been changed or not changed by Dan Campbell.
Well, and that's one of the things you've got to look at, too, is you talked about the Green Bay and the Detroit game. I mean, the Green Bay game obviously was the infamous Queasy comment where the pass protection broke down on one play and they decided to run the ball, and they didn't pick up the first down. That's where I think Chris McCain saying, yeah, they expected the team to throw the ball to try to get the first down. Everything kind of, when they didn't, it kind of shocked them. And then I remember in the Detroit game, I remember how that final drive lasted. First of all, Charles Clay dropped a potential touchdown late in that fourth quarter that would have put them up 7. They settled for a field goal. The first two plays of that final drive was 2 Daniel Thomas runs. Of course, Lamar Miller was hurt in that game, so he didn't get to play. So they ran him twice. He got 5 yards on the first carry, 0 on the second carry. And then on the third down play, it was pretty much they snapped the ball, and the offensive line gave up pressure almost immediately, and Tannehill was flushed from the pocket and had to force the third yard slanter, which was incomplete. So, I mean, in my opinion, you look at that kind of game, number one, the first time the ball was taken out of his hands by the coach, and the second time they put the ball in his hands, and everybody else around him just kind of collapsed. So, I mean, it's just kind of tough to say right now, because it's just not only has they not had that many opportunities, but there's just not been, it's just when they have had them, lots of things have gone wrong.
And that's pretty much the point that a lot of people are making, is that Ryan Tannehill needs pieces around him to be functioning when he's playing quarterback. The only quarterbacks who can get away with stuff like that, and this is just my kind of thinking here, is that the only quarterback so far that I've seen that can actually get away with this sort of thing is Tom Brady. And even he has this offensive line that's been functioning for him ever since he was even started in this league. I can't think of a year where he actually had a bad one. And when he has had bad ones, he hasn't looked all that great. So make of that what you will. So you got Tom Brady, you have Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is just like the best I don't care what anybody says, he is the best quarterback in the NFL, just talent-wise. If you want to talk accomplishments, then yes, it's Brady, but Rodgers is a better quarterback than Brady, in my opinion. Then you have Ben Roethlisberger, who never lets a play die without him actually throwing the football. It seems like getting a sack on him requires 4 defenders, so that he gets to do stuff like that. And you also have recently Cam Newton, who is essentially becoming the Panthers' entire offense, and not even just as a quarterback, he's pretty much becoming their leading rusher. So he's making his own run game to give some kind of balanced offense, and he also has a really good defense behind him backing him up. So, and then you get maybe Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees, because at this point, Drew Brees is not looking like he's starting to look like I understand that he had this incredible game last week, but overall, it's begun to look like that Brees is starting to slow down. He had a really good game last week, but I don't know if he can keep that sort of thing up, especially with the way he's been playing recently. And of course, Phillip Rivers has always been a kind of on and off upper tier quarterback, if you can get that distinction. And there was one more that he was just in my mind that I can't remember who he is, but all in all, there are very few quarterbacks who have not been the beneficiaries of a team that has been able to come through for them when they're needed. You look at Peyton Manning. I honestly, the only thing that was keeping Peyton in the game of football at this point was his brain, because his arm was dead last year, and it seems even more so now. The only reason that the Broncos are doing as well as they are is because, honestly, I feel like they have the number 1 defense in the NFL. To heck with the Legion of Boom. They're dead. When Dan Quinn left, their boom went with them. So now it's Denver doing what they do to hold down the fort, while Peyton kind of muddles through what could very potentially be his last year, because if his arm gets any worse, he's going to wind up throwing 5 feet to the ground. So I look at it like that, and you know what? I realize that we've been talking about the offense this whole time, and really we spent. I'm kind of embarrassed that we've been talking for an hour and a half just on the offense. We have to talk a little bit about the defense before we shut this show down. Cameron Wake is out for the season, guys. That is going to be a serious problem moving forward when you have our star pass rusher who suddenly so we're not going to have that production going into the came back to life and he got 7 sacks in 3 games. So we're not going to have that production going into the rest of the season, and very potentially we may not even have him going into the next season, because his salary is so high next year that we may not be able to afford keeping him. So now we're going to wind up with Derek Shelby, Terrence Fede, and supposedly Chris McCain, but I'm not exactly convinced that McCain's going to be able to see the field that often. I mean, he's a speed rusher, sure, but he's not Cameron Wake by any stretch of the imagination, and he's even more of a liability in the run game than Wake is, if you're going to ask me. So I'm going to ask you guys now, how do you think the Dolphins are going to be able to overcome the loss of their star pass rusher?
I'm going to maybe shock you a little bit here, but I don't think it's going to affect them that much. I think that Cameron Wake always was a bit of a, and I think that Derek Shelby is much better than Cameron. I don't know much, but he's definitely better than Cameron Wake in the run game.
That's why he was getting all the snaps he was getting to begin with.
And he's a solid player. They are going to have to change their scheme up, and I don't believe even for a second Chris McCain's going to be playing defensive end and anything other than like 3rd and 10 or longer, with the idea he's just going to be rushing the passer. He's not going to be trying to anchor at defensive end. That'll be Shelby and Fede. They'll be working in there. So I don't think it's as enormous of hit as people believe it is. It is going to hurt us when we get into plays that are like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 or longer, because we're probably going to have to commit more blitz packages. It's because we don't have anybody else on the team that can beat a guy one-on-one like Cam Wake could at rushing the passer. But you take on the flip side, if you have Derek Shelby on the field more often, maybe we are even a little bit better in the running game, because I always felt like you always had that trade-off. You want to have Cameron Wake in there whenever they pass because he's so effective at rushing the passer, but you're trying to decide when to take him in and take him out in terms of run defense. So now I think we'll have a more consistent run defense with Derek Shelby in there. So I'm not too concerned about it. We still have a very solid defense, in my opinion. We still have very good interior linemen, and we still have an all-pro corner in Brett Grimes that you can match up one-on-one on people. We still have, in my opinion, an all-pro safety in Rashad Jones. Jelani Jenkins is a very good linebacker. We have quite a bit of talent to work with on the defense. I'm honestly much more worried about the injury to Juwan James, because to me, there's a huge drop off to Jason Fox, and he's going to be a liability whenever you're in there. And I heard, whether this is true or not, I heard the rumor that they talked about maybe sliding Dallas Thomas over there, and Dallas Thomas has done nothing but just get beaten like a drum at right tackle whenever he's played there. And we're playing again against Mario Williams to start out right here. And Mario Williams has made a career out of beating our right tackle and basically just destroying our whole game plan. And so, to me, that's the much bigger adjustment the team's looking at, because it's such a steep drop off in talent, and it affects so much on what they might try to do offensively versus defensively. So that's probably why I haven't been talking about it as much, because I'm not shocked that it's everybody's freaking out because he was such a big name. But again, that when we're playing teams that aren't elite quarterbacks, I don't think it's that far-fetched to just blitz linebackers more often, or to blitz some safeties here and there. Things that you can do to generate more pass rush. That's really what it comes down to.
Did we lose Duke or something? Yeah, we seem to have lost Duke. Okay, so we seem to be having some technical difficulties with our phone calls, but I guess that's okay since we've been going for over an hour and a half anyway. So I think we're going to wrap this show up. It was a...
Let's get your prediction quick, Lewis. I want to hear what your game prediction is.
Oh, my game prediction? Okay. Well, like I said, I've been thinking that the Dolphins are going to actually win this game. I think the influence of Dan Campbell, the Campbell effect as it's being called, is going to actually do a lot more for the Dolphins than people are giving credit for. I mean, if you look at it like this, and we were at the Texans game for the when we blew them out for the Web weekend. And I pretty much, it sounds like I was rubbing it in, but really I was trying to console these Texans fans by saying this, is that if Joe Philbin had still been the head coach, then the score more than likely actually probably would have been the other way around. So the Campbell effect is real, and I'm looking at this team that's still full of life. And even against the Patriots, the Dolphins defense itself did not just lay down and die. They went and they balled out, and they tried to do their very best to keep the Dolphins alive. The offense itself is just the problem. So with that said, Rex is not a good coach, really. He's not a good head coach. He's a great defensive coordinator, I'm sure, but he cannot handle being a head coach. And the team of coaches around him is not all that spectacular. So I'm not worried about Rex out coaching us per se, because I think even Darren Rizzi by himself is a better head coach than Rex Ryan. So with that in mind, you have Leotis McKelvin, who I believe it was said that he would be playing safety for the first time since high school or something like that. And he's also coming off of an injury, so he's not going to be at his full potential. And then you got Kyle Williams, one of their top defensive tackles. He's not going to be playing, at least as far as we know. So that's going to help the running game a lot. Sammy Watkins is gimpy. Tyrod Taylor is more than likely going to be gimpy. It really, honestly, it looks like that things are starting to come alive for the Dolphins. I understand that Juwan James is out. Jason Fox is nowhere near as athletic as Juwan James. So that's going to limit what we're going to be able to do. Honestly, at this point, I'm wondering if maybe it actually would be a better idea to put Dallas Thomas at right tackle, if only because he knows how to run better than Jason Fox. Not that I would be happy about it, but I can understand the difference making there. Let Jamil Douglas go back to left guard, and then Dallas Thomas plays right tackle, and maybe they can run around a little more. So with that said, I think the Dolphins are going to go back to playing physical. I think they're not going to be intimidated by what they have and what Tyrod Taylor can do and what LaShawn McCoy can do, because McCoy is not going to gash them running up the middle or anything like that. He's going to be more of a weapon outside of the backfield type of thing. I think the Dolphins are going to be ready for it. I think that having all that time to heal up after New England. I think being able to go back to being physical in practice is going to come back and show that the Dolphins still have the ability to win these games. And I think that the Dolphins are going to end up coming out of Buffalo victorious for the first time in a long time by a score of 24-20.
Jeez, that's good. I do agree with you. I think the Dolphins are going to win this game simply because this is probably the worst Buffalo team we've played. Not that they were a bad team from the start. It's just they're so banged up. And so they're missing a lot of key components to their football team. And so I would think from a strategy standpoint, the Dolphins coaches could come up with several ways to exploit where Buffalo has their weak spots right now, because they do have a lot of guys that are hurt or missing. With that being said, I think our defense will show up and play well. I really think you're going to see them play pressure defense, and they're going to try to force Tyrod Taylor to have to move around or force him in the pocket to throw down the field. I don't think they're going to just let Buffalo ground and pound away at them. So they're going to play up tight to defend the run and make Taylor beat them, especially with how limited right now Buffalo is at the skill positions. On offense, that's what it's going to come down to me, for Miami. If they are going to win this game, we need to be able to figure out how to score points. And I think Ryan Tannehill is going to be in a hostile environment, and I think we've got Jason Fox in there who they're going to be trying to exploit with Mario Williams. And so I'm hopeful that we can score some points. I think this will be actually a pretty easy game for us if, like I said earlier, if we can get up early and force Buffalo into more of a passing situation. I just don't think Buffalo is healthy enough or geared right now to be able to throw the ball a whole lot. And so that, to me, is the key of the game. Can we put some offensive game plans together that can get us some points early on? So my prediction is that they will do that with Dan Campbell. I don't think he's going to leave Ryan Tannehill be a sitting duck. And I do think he's going to move Ryan Tannehill. I think they're going to screen a lot. And I think that we're going to probably win this game. I'll go with 27-14.
That's even higher than me. And you were saying that you were saying I was the optimistic one.
No, I'm worried about what we do on offense. So I don't believe Dan Campbell is going to do the same thing that Joe Philbin's did for the last 3 years against Buffalo, with trying to run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets and expecting our line to win their one-on-one matchups with all the good defensive players on Buffalo. I just don't see Dan Campbell letting Mario Williams beat Jason Fox over and over, hitting Ryan Tannehill and creating turnovers and stuff. I think he's going to help him out. He'll probably run a lot more two tight end sets and use Deion Sims and Jordan Cameron to help block Mario Williams, and that will I think work out a lot better for us, because that was Joe Philbin's thing. He just absolutely refused to go away from running his 3 wide receiver formation, and Buffalo had that figured out. So that's why I'm feeling like it's going to go well.
All right. Hopefully you turn out to be right, Chad, because I'd rather your prediction be right than mine, because that's a higher score and it's going to make...
I'm good with either one. Just get a win.
Just get a win. Yeah. Like, get the fan base to please calm down, because Dolphins Twitter, you need to calm down, okay? Because you're making... It's very difficult to look on there and see everybody fighting. We're all friends here, right? We're all Dolphins fans. Fins up, remember? So we're gonna hopefully we'll be able to come out of Buffalo with a win, and everybody can just calm down and take a deep breath. So with that said, so today we had a few technical difficulties with the cell phones, I guess, or something like that. But so for all in all, I think we have a nice system going. So from now on, guys, we're going to be able to take in callers. So if you ever want to call in the show, you can call us again. That's 1954 547. No, I'm sorry. My brain is everywhere tonight. It's 1954-376-5704. This is still new, guys, so I'm still getting used to the setup. Say good night for myself and Chad Ronnebaum and our guests, Antwan Staley, and thank you, Chris Early, otherwise known as Duke, for calling in the show. That's going to be it for tonight. I want to wish everybody a fantastic night, and take care.